Hey everybody, let's talk about the letter hey, specifically as a prefix and a suffix. Shalom lekulam and welcome back to Hebrew Grammar Help. I'm Sapir and today I'm going to be talking about the letter hey as a prefix and a suffix. Sapir here in the editing room. This video doing both prefixes and suffixes took too long. So today I'm going to talk only about prefixes, and then next week I'll do the video on hey related suffixes. So the first one I want to talk about is a prefix called ha-yedi'ah. And this is in English referred to as the definite article. Now, the definite article in English is the word the, and it is always, of course, a separate word. But in Hebrew, it is a prefix. It looks simply like a hey, and it gets attached to the beginning of the following word. Ha-yedi'ah gets attached to any definite nouns, and it also gets attached to any adjectives that are part of that noun phrase that has a definite noun in them. And this is kind of important because Hebrew does not have present tense forms of the verb to be. So without this feature of the hey being added to attributive adjectives, it would be difficult to determine where the subject and where the predicate are. So take, for example, these two sentences. Ha-sefer ha-gadol biyedei ha-yalda. This specifically means the big book is in the hands of the girl. But if we say it without putting the ha-yedi'ah on that adjective, it changes the meaning of the sentence. Ha-sefer gadol biyedei ha-yalda. This now means the book is big in the girl's hands. So imagine a book, it's not specifically super big, but a little girl's hands might be small, and so it's big only specifically in her hands. So do you see the difference? The big book is in the girl's hands. The book is big in the girl's hands. Very different sentences. Now, it is almost always pronounced ha. Biblical scholars will... What's up, kitty? You want out? As a modern Hebrew learner, it really doesn't matter to me whether this hey has a kamat or a patach under it. They all sound like ha to me. And I know that this is more important to biblical learners, but really we modern Hebrew learners just never even pay attention. But one thing is that the vowel does change to a segol in certain circumstances, and that is important because it has a different sound. It sounds like he instead of ha. And those circumstances are if the following letter is a he, an ayin, or a chet that is unaccented with a kamatz. So that's ha-yedi'ah, the definite article. There is a second hey prefix that is extremely rare. And in fact, in modern Hebrew, I have only ever seen it in one very specific situation. It's called he ha-she'elah, meaning like the question hey. It's a prefix form of the question word ha'im. If you're not familiar with the word ha'im, it's basically an optional word that can open a yes-no question. Most people will tell you that this is only for written Hebrew or for high register speech, but I've heard it also used in slightly more casual conversation. The thing is that word order of a yes-no question is exactly the same as the corresponding statement. So if you say something like Abba Babait, when we say a sentence like this, if we're making a statement, the tone drops at the end. And if we're making a question, the tone rises at the end. So, Abba Babait, statement, Dad is in the house. Abba Babait, question. Is Dad in the house? And of course, if the sentence is written, then we're going to have the punctuation, either a period for a statement or a question mark for a question. We do have the option of saying ha'im aba babayit, and that ha'im is like a grammar sign saying, attention, question starting now. But like I said, that's pretty rare in casual conversation. Often if we hear ha'im in more casual speech, it's because this is going to be a really long question. It's going to take a long time to get to that upwards intonation. And so the speaker generally will use it to kind of let the listener know, hey, this is going to be a question. It's going to take me a while to get to the gist of it, but this is a question here. Anyway, I digress. That's ha'im. There are a handful of short grammatical words that have even shorter forms that are prefixes. So for example, we have the word kmo, which means like or as, and then we have the prefix ke, which has the exact same purpose. We have the word asher, which means that, it's like a conjunction, and then we have she, which is a prefix and has the same purpose. We have min, it's a preposition meaning from or of, and then we have me or mi, which serves the same purpose. And so we also have ha'im, which introduces a yes-no question, and then we have ha, which is the prefix, does the same thing. As I mentioned, this is pretty rare, especially in modern Hebrew. When I went looking for it online, I actually couldn't find anything about it in English. I had to go to Hebrew Wikipedia to even find any article about it. And I was hoping to change the article into English, but there is no English version of this article. So that Wikipedia article, though, did point me in the direction of a few examples from the Tanakh. And the first one is recognizable even to the most Bible illiterate among us. It's from Genesis 4:9, and it goes, Vayomer Hashem el Cain, E hevel achicha. Vayomer lo yadati, Hashomer achi anochi. And the JPS translation is, Hashem said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? So I don't know a single English-speaking adult that does not know that phrase, am I my brother's keeper? And so here we have the he ha-she'elah. Ha-shomer achi anochi. Shomer means keeper. Achi means my brother. Anochi means I. So what's that ha doing there? It's introducing that question. You know, in biblical times, there were no punctuation marks, no periods, no question marks, no quote marks, nothing really to indicate whether something is a question or a statement, except this little prefix saying, yo, question here. And Genesis 43:7 has 3 of them in a single verse. If you watched my Sunday video on the Shoresh Bet Kofshin, then you saw I talked about the episode where Joseph in Egypt sees his brother Benjamin after all of these years, and he's overcome with emotion and he's on the verge of tears. So this verse, Genesis 43:7, is just a little bit before that. And I'm just going to explain the story a little bit for those of you who don't know the whole context. So if you remember, many years before, Joseph's brothers all sold him into slavery, and he ended up in Egypt, and there he found favor in the eyes of the Pharaoh, and that's why he became, remember, with all the dreams, and he interpreted the dreams, he foresaw the 7 years of goodness and then the 7 years of famine. And so here we are in the 7 years of famine. His brothers have come back, but it's so many years later, he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And so he gives them food and he says, don't come back without your brother, your other brother. And now they've eaten all of the food that he gave them, but the famine is still pretty bad. And so their father, Israel / Jacob, is telling them, go back down and get some more food. And they say, okay, but we have to bring our brother Benjamin with us. And Israel says, you idiots, why did you tell them that you had another brother? I'm paraphrasing, of course. So this verse, Genesis 43:7, says in Hebrew, Vayomru sha'ol sha'a ha'ish lanu ulemoladtenu, lemor, ha'od avichem chai, hayesh lachem ach, vanaged lo al pi, hadvarim ha'ele, ha-yedi'ah neda ki yomar horidu et achichem. Wow, that is a long verse. The JPS version is, they replied, but the man kept asking us about us and our family, saying, is your father still living? Have you another brother? And we answered him accordingly. How were we to know that he would say, bring your brother here? So we have ha'od avichem chai, meaning, is your father still living? And that ha is the indication that it's a question. Then, hayesh lachem ach, do you have a brother? And ha-yedi'ah neda. This is an expression that to me literally looks like it's saying, is it known we will know? But it must be some biblical expression. There are a lot of these, like where there's two different forms of a verb and they have kind of a specific meaning. But because I'm not a biblical Hebrew learner or a biblical scholar, I'm not really in tune with all of that. And so it's translated as, how were we to know? And there seem to be all kinds of instances like this. I mean, this was 2 verses that I gave, but it's all over the Tanakh. But in modern Hebrew, the ha-yedi'ah as a prefix is not productive at all. And what it means when a linguist says that a prefix or a suffix, any kind of an affix, is productive, that means that it can be added to all kinds of different words. If it can be added to all kinds of new words and phrases, then we say it's productive. If it cannot, then it's kind of like stuck in a few phrases that are already there and they become kind of fixed phrases. And that's what we have here. So where I saw this, and this is the only place I've ever seen it, is in my Easy Hebrew newspaper, Breshit. And they have a feature every edition that says, ha-yedi'ah, and they also write, did you know? And so it's just a little feature, giving little tidbits of information about whatever subject. So this could have easily just been said, yadatem, and that means, did you know? But they wanted to put the extra hey to, make it a little more literary. And when I asked one of my consultants about it, she said, oh, yes, of course, because you saw it in a newspaper, right? She knows that nobody would ever actually speak that way. And she and one other consultant also confirmed that it is the shortened form of ha'im. And in fact, when I asked her about it, I said, ha-yedi'ah, and she said, oh, right, ha'im yadatem. So in her mind, those two, the 2-word phrase, ha'im yadatem, and the 1 word with the prefix, ha-yedi'ah, were like one and the same. So because this is an older form and a literary form and a non-productive form, I definitely do not recommend trying to incorporate this into your own language. I just wanted you to know, if you ever see something like that and you see ha-yedi'ah, you're like, well, what's that hey doing there? Is that the hey ha-yedi'ah? Or what could it possibly mean? Now you know what it means. Okay, thanks for watching. Now you know all about the hey related prefixes. There's really only 2 of them, and only one is super common. The other one, as I mentioned, is super, super uncommon. Of course, there's also hey prefixes with hit pa'el verbs and hif'il verbs. But I talk about those when I do my videos about the conjugations of those particular binyanim. And you never know when there's just going to be a word that starts with a hey. I hate these because I look at them and I try to figure out, oh, is that the hey ha-yedi'ah? What hey is that? And it turns out it's just part of the word. So if you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. And especially if you have any aspect of grammar that has you flummoxed, let me know and I will do a video on it. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more. Lahitrat, Papa Ama Ba'a. See you next time.